Welcome back to the Lift Free and Diet Hard podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Coates. Join me along with industry leaders and friends on a quest to get more people through the gym door and eating and living healthier. Join me where evidence meets empathy while rejecting fitness industry fads and extremism. Let's begin. Long overdue, Alex Allen. And funny enough, I just recorded with Melody Schoenfeld yesterday. I was talking about how I saw her at the Olympia. Well, I also saw you at the Olympia. You were there at a booth. And you are, among many other things, an online coach, the host of Born to Thrive podcast. And you've got a bit of pretty eclectic background. You're actually not dissimilar from me in that we don't have traditional degrees in exercise science or nutrition. I mean, your education degree is in music, if I'm correct.
I have two, so musical theater and fire science.
Ah, right, because I knew you spent time as a firefighter and you have some background in acting. So you've taken... I love people. It validates my path because I've owned a nightclub. I have a business degree, but it means that you can benefit greatly from a lot of varied life experience. And I think it makes you a really good coach as opposed to being that 19-year-old freshly minted trainer, right? Which is fine too.
I've actually been a trainer the whole time I went through everything. So I started my fitness journey when I was technically like 18, and then I actually became a trainer when I was 19, just through NASM, you know how everyone does that. But it was kind of on accident because I went through a weight loss journey where I had joined a boot camp class. A bunch of people in the boot camp class were bodybuilders and stuff, and they were like, oh, we don't actually do the boot camp classes. We go to the gym. And I was like, wait, so why are you coaching these boot camp classes? Because some people like them and they're good, but if you really want to get muscle and get big, you have to go to the gym. So I joined a 24-hour fitness, and when I joined, they tried to offer me like the free personal training session, which is basically just trying to get you to sign up. And I told them I was actually trying to become a trainer myself because I wanted to learn more about it. That's always been how I've gotten anywhere, is I just get curious and I like to learn more about the things that I'm passionate about. And the fitness manager called me and said, hey, I heard you want to be a fitness coach. Do you want me to train you and like train you how to be a trainer, and I can help you? So he helped me for probably 2 months to get ready for the NASM test and to teach me basically everything he learned in his kinesiology degree. And then I passed the NASM test, and then I became a trainer, and he coached me for probably a year on how to be a really great trainer and would help me with all my clients to make sure I was doing it right. And so that's what got me started. And then I just kept doing it while I did everything else at the same time.
And
so I was very lucky.
You were, especially having someone invested in you early. I was much later in life when I first started as a trainer, but the gym's been a home and sports for a very long time. But this is about you. So you use this in your bio, and it's fantastic. Quote, you'll never hate yourself into a body you love. Talk to me about that.
So I spent so much of my life hating myself and hating my body, and it led me to restrict food heavily, overtrain, binge eat, and I've done it all. I've gained and lost 60 pounds twice. I've been severely underweight. I've been overweight, I wouldn't say severely, but I was overweight. And I learned the hard way that by doing things from a place of self-hate, it was never sustainable and it was never enjoyable because I was just always miserable. And I think that that's one of the most important lessons. My downfall that I've learned as of late is I have a savior complex. I'm an ENFJ. And so I always want to save everybody. And so I don't want people to have to go through the same things that I did to get to this point. And I hope that I can educate and get people before that happens. But I also have to remember that for a lot of people, you do kind of have to go through the BS and the hard stuff to learn that. You have to go through the kind of hating yourself or the being down on yourself or being hard on yourself phase to realize that that's not sustainable and that's not the way to do it.
For anybody who's wondering what you had referred to, that's a Myers-Briggs test.
Yeah.
Like one of the archetypes, right?
The nerd. Yeah.
And
the protagonist.
I like thinking about it this way. Hate, anger, negative emotion, it's really effective fuel, but it's really dirty fuel. You can't run on that fuel for a long time.
it helped get me started. And I have so many friends who are the same way. Like for them, they're so type A, they're very disciplined, and they do come from this place of almost fear or self-hate. And it fuels the initial fire with so much passion. But then they get worried that if they stop or if they slow down, then suddenly they're going to lose everything. And it's not true. And also, it's important to remember that those feelings are okay. It is okay to get angry. It is okay to have, like, quote, negative emotions, but you have to give them appropriate space and recognize that they shouldn't be the only driving force. The reason I say it's okay to have those feelings, a lot of people think that it's almost a bad thing. And the reality is, we're human beings. We're going to have those emotions. No one is genuinely happy or okay all of the time.
Mm.
And the only way to truly feel love and happiness and excitement is by letting yourself feel the kind of shitty stuff.
I guess there's a lot. Someone can easily get into a shame spiral if they felt
Mhm.
like those emotions are a bad thing.
Yeah, I felt like that for a really long time. It took me a really, really, really long time to recognize that I was really operating from a place of shame. I felt really ashamed of the body that I had. I felt really ashamed of the way I was showing up. I felt really ashamed of not dealing with my stuff, or for getting angry, or for feeling insecure, or for comparing myself to other people. And the reality is, we are human beings. We are so complex. I still find myself comparing myself sometimes, but the difference is I give myself compassion and I get more curious about it. So rather than trying to just not feel it or to berate yourself for feeling anything like that, recognizing that it is a human emotion. And one of my favorite quotes is, "Where you are triggered is your therapist." So recognizing that any triggers that you have is an opportunity to learn and understand why you're feeling that way and to get more curious. Like, jealousy is an indication that you want what that person has. And because I'm not going to get jealous of someone living on a farm in the middle of nowhere. I don't want to do that with my life. I am going to get jealous of somebody who's maybe has a really nice house on the beach and has a dog and is married, and certain things that I know that I want for my life. And I'm like, okay, cool. I know that they do that. And I know, and also, again, this is where it's important. You can get, quote, jealous, but then you can also be so excited and celebrate that those people have those beautiful things. So that's why it's important to recognize that it's human to have those feelings, but they don't have to control you and they don't have to dictate how you show up for yourself and for other people.
When you were in the thickest throes of being motivated by, let's call it self-hate,
Mhm.
and I mean, I'm familiar with your journey about the gain loss and every
Mhm.
nuance of it. Did you ever arrive at a point where you were happy or at peace when motivated from a negative place?
No, I would say no pretty confidently, because the interesting thing was I had gone from being 60 pounds heavier to than I am now, to being technically 80 pounds lighter because I got stage lean, and I was chasing that because I thought stage lean was sustainable all the time. And I just didn't understand the messaging. And so I got to what I thought was the ideal physique, and then I was still miserable. And then I was scared to eat. And so then I was still miserable because I was like, okay, my relationship with food is terrible. And if I start to see the weight go up on the scale, that's horrible. And I'm going to spiral. So it just felt like I was always chasing the next goal and I was always chasing the next thing. And what was really interesting is I kind of recognized this a lot in therapy, where I don't remember a lot of my childhood. I don't remember a lot of even like my teenage years, because I was always constantly looking for the next thing. I was constantly focused on the next goal. Like, how can I keep moving forward? And I spent so little time being present and grateful for where I am and really sitting in that.
Are you in a more peaceful place now?
I am. It's taken me a long time to get there, and I still have times where I'm not as at peace. It definitely still happens. That is a human thing to be like, okay, wait, what am I doing with my life? Or where do I want to go? What direction do I want to pivot to? But I've learned to be more present and to really appreciate those moments, and how to not necessarily avoid it, but how to sit in that discomfort of, like, even this past weekend, we had a really big event at Alpha Land. It was Buff Bunny World. And basically, there was so many people. And there was a lot of overwhelm for me because there was pressure from how I'm showing up in the world. There was pressure from things that had happened that created difficult conversations. And I found myself getting anxious and feeling a little overwhelmed. And it started to pull me out of this really beautiful and really exciting moment. And I had to recognize that discomfort and I had to sit in it, hold space for it, recognize that I'm human, and then try to ground myself so I could be more present.
A quick side quest. This episode is sponsored by Macros First, the nutrition app I use for myself and my clients. I don't believe everybody needs to track all the time, but just knowing how many calories are in the food you eat helps with a bunch of things. One, if you're used to restricting, you realize just how much nutritious food you need to eat to fuel yourself. Two, then you realize you have the room for your favorite treats without guilt and shame. Three, realize just how many calories you're eating when you consume a lot of ultra-processed junk food and alcohol. Four, rein in your portion sizes. And five, see just how much snacking you're doing. Your baseline nutrition will improve. My favorite features are the free barcode scanner. The app is easy to use, and you can build and save meals for faster logging. You can also get an extended free trial of the premium version for 14 days and check out a bunch of the cool added features, like check your nutrition trends over time. You chart your patterns and averages instead of seeing your days in isolation. To get your free premium trial, download Macros First, and during setup, you'll be asked, how did you hear about us? Type in the code, Andrew. Make an assumption here, but you are sponsored by Buff Bunny, which I think is pretty prestigious in this space. I suppose the person who aspires, there's probably a point in time where you would have liked to have before it happened. But then I guess there's also, I don't like think in terms of stratifications, but there are probably people with like 10x plus your quote following who are also sponsored by Buff Buddy. So is there an element of being in that space and then looking and going, oh, I wish, comes back to that like jealousy, but maybe positive thought about those people? Is there a little bit of imposter syndrome, maybe being in the space with some of those figures? Meanwhile, how many people would have been there wishing that they were sponsored at all? Can you unpack that?
Yeah, I don't really get imposter syndrome anymore. It was funny. Alona Mayer, I don't know how to pronounce her name correctly, but the rugby player, she's so great. But she said it too, where she was like, I don't have imposter syndrome. And I was like, I love that. Because why do we get imposter syndrome? Because we feel like we don't belong. We feel like we don't deserve the things that we've gotten. But also, I think part of that is people think they're supposed to say that. People think they're supposed to be, in a sense, humble. Yes, you should be humble, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't celebrate the really hard work that you've put into things. And just because you're not where maybe somebody else is with, I think this is so important to recognize that just because someone has a following doesn't mean that they're better than you. And it also doesn't mean that they have their life more together than you. People see a following and they assume that someone's making a ton of money or that their life is perfect or that there's just nothing ever wrong. When the reality is you have no idea. You have no idea. And you're just comparing yourself to a highlight reel. And even me, who tries to share very vulnerably and share openly what I'm going through and what's going on in my life, I'm not going to share everything. You're not, respectfully, it's not my diary. It's not my therapy. That's not appropriate. I try to share lessons that I've learned, but I also try to be really cognizant of this is my personal life and I'm going to keep it personal. But I think that the reason I don't have imposter syndrome as much anymore is I know I've worked really hard to get to where I am. I also know I want to go farther. And I didn't get jealous of anybody there who, there's one girl there who has like 2 million followers. And she's so great. She's so sweet. And I was so excited for her. I thought that was really beautiful. There was volunteers there who were hoping to be on Buff Bunny Collection and who would ask questions about how do I get on the team and how do I do all this? So there's people who dream of it. Again, you can appreciate how far you've gotten and recognize that it's something to be grateful for. And you can also still be striving to do more. There's so many things that can exist. And I sound so calm saying this. It doesn't mean that I don't have moments where I'm like overwhelmed or I'm anxious. Like I literally just said I was. But it's important to hold space for it because the more you can actually sit in it, the easier it is for you to kind of move through it.
This is a complete side quest. I can
Go
always
for it.
tell the guests who have their own podcast because there are people who you can prompt with questions and they'll give short answers, but you actually take it, run with it, warmth, charisma, like it's practiced. You can tell that a lot of these, you're good at articulating these thoughts and rolling with them. So, and that often comes with someone who's got a lot of experience as a podcast host too. Okay.
It's funny because I actually hadn't made a new podcast episode in probably 3 or 4 months.
Ooh.
And I know. And so I felt like I have not practiced enough because obviously it's a skill that the more that you talk, the more that you do this, the easier it is. And also obviously through acting, it made me reciting scripts really easy. But then me talking for myself is something I
Mm.
still get uncomfortable with sometimes. And I'm more cognizant of. One of my friends, he has a podcast as well, and he said I was really well spoken, but then he also pointed out that I say like and a lot still. And it's not a bad thing. It's something that I am trying to be more cognizant of though, because it's about reps. So this is now what I'm starting to do with my podcast as I'm bringing it back, which is actually listening to my own podcast back and seeing how many times I do say like, how many times I do say so that way I can just get better at it. It's exactly like football, like sports, sports ball, where they watch back their footage, they watch back the games, they see where they can get better. People think it's so egotistical to look back at things that you do. Like I look back at my content and I'm like, how can I make this better? How can I do something different with it? And you have to be objective where you're not going to tear yourself down and be like, oh, that was horrible. I'm a piece of like a piece of shit, all this stuff. No, it's okay. I could do better here. I can maybe make this edit a little bit more exciting, or I can to get rid of some of the ums or the likes. But also, one thing I've learned about public speaking or speaking in general is slowing down. I tend to talk quickly because I like to get my point across effectively if I can. But a lot of times the likes and the ums is you just being uncomfortable with a moment of silence.
See, I have a dirty trick. If I go back and listen to a podcast episode, I just listen on 2 times speed. So
I do that too.
when I'm from Newfoundland, so the East Coast, and we tend to talk quickly there. That's sort of a part of the accent, but I probably have slowed it down over the years a bit. And now if I'm listening to podcasts in general, I have to go on 2 times speed. Actually, it's excruciatingly painful to listen to podcasts on 1 time speed. So for all my listeners here, guys, speed it up gradually. And guess what? You can get through more of my episodes. That's a cheat code.
Self-plug. That's great. I listen to podcasts on 2x speed as well. And then if I do that and then I go to record a podcast episode, I realize how quickly I talk because of it. Because I'm so used to listening it really fast that I'm like, okay, time to record. And then I think I have to talk that fast. So I reel myself back in and I'm like, oh, wait, this is not. It's a toxic trait because I do that in conversations sometimes. I'm like, oh, why is this person talking so slow? And I'm like, oh, I'm just very used to listening to podcast episodes on 2x speed and I need to recognize it's not real life.
Pivot, but sort of adjacent to what we were
pivoting. You're
talking about
fine.
before.
I have ADHD. It's perfect.
I thought about this one. I was curious. Maybe there's nothing here, but if
Okay.
someone meets you or sees you on your media,
Mhm.
I mean, you're a small human, okay? I met you in person. You're a small human. So objectively, you're smaller, leaner, and now people will get their shit in a knot about this, but most people would look at you and say you're pretty fit, okay? So
Mhm.
they're going to make some assumptions about your appearance. To that last point, what assumptions or misconceptions do people often have about you and your journey, especially when they look at you where you are now, and maybe they didn't know about the weight gain, loss, and
Mhm.
so on challenges?
It's funny because you actually technically said one of them, which people think I'm taller than I am.
Okay.
Most people think I'm like 5'7" or 5'10", and I'm like, oh, I'm 5'2" on a good day. Like if I'm wearing shoes, I'm 5'2". I think I'm like 5'1 3/4". But anyways, I'm gonna say I'm 5'2" for the sake of my ego.
Mm.
So my height, but then also assumptions, especially as of this year, because I've gotten into a leaner body. A big assumption is that I don't understand what it's like to be in a bigger body, or I've never struggled with my relationship with food, or I've always, a really big one that I've always been really careful about is that I'm always happy because people see me excited, they see me dancing, and a lot of people assume I'm just always on and excited and a ray of sunshine. And I'm like, no, I have hard days and I have hard moments, and that's just part of being human. I'd say those are the biggest assumptions.
I was laughing because you and Jordan Syatt did talk about this. So you were on Jordan Syatt's podcast, which, by the way, guys, go listen. It's almost like 3 hours long. It's fantastic. There's a lot more backstory there, so people can fill in the gaps that we probably don't have time to get into. But Um, well, love Jordan to death, right?
Hmm.
Obviously, Jordan is very open about the fact that Jordan is not a big human being, but
Yeah.
I mean, you're almost as tall as he is.
I think it's like 5'5".
He might be. I'm not throwing a shout at Jordan. I love Jordan. He's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been on the podcast a number of times over the years. Okay, you have talked about that there were points in your weight loss journey that your weight loss was unintentional and went past what you wanted. Talk to me about that.
So ironically enough, that was this year. So I don't know if it's technically ironic, but yes, that was this year. So basically, I tried to, as the kids say, lock in on my fitness goals and just get my stuff together because I've been saying that I want to build my legs for a really long time, but with my PCOS and my lupus, it was really, really hard. And because I would have I don't like cycle syncing. I don't support it. I don't think there's validity around it. But I would have really bad luteal phases that would make it really hard for me to be as consistent or make it really challenging for me to push as hard in the gym. So it's not that I would stop showing up and it's not that I wouldn't work out as intense or it's not that I wouldn't work out, it's that I wouldn't work out as intensely, which obviously isn't conducive to them building muscle. So my PCOS and everything was actually in a really, really good spot. And so I was like, I'm going to try and build muscle and build my legs this year. And I locked in probably starting like mid-January. And then by mid-March, I went through some kind of challenging personal stuff that added a lot of stress to my life. And that stress inherently made me kind of lean into walking a lot more. And it skewed my hunger cues a little bit. So I'm still focused on trying to be my best. But then PCOS started to get worse and my luteal phase started hitting hard again. I'm walking a lot more because it's how I like to manage stress. My hunger cues were just really off. And so I just wasn't eating as much. And so I inherently moving more, eating less, lost weight. And so I ended up getting to a weight and a size that I hadn't seen in years and that I was extremely uncomfortable with that honestly was pretty triggering to me because I'm like, I don't like this. And I started to get a lot of comments too from people saying, how are you supporting body positivity when you look this skinny or you look unhealthy? And it was hard because my whole page has been and still is about promoting body acceptance, not body positivity, body acceptance, and recognizing that you should be the strongest, healthiest version of yourself, whatever that might look like. And a big part of that used to be that I just had more body fat and I was okay with it. So then not having it, it was really challenging to navigate shifting my content and navigating having the same message without being ignorant to how I looked. This is personal, but I don't I feel like sometimes people when people are in a very small body and they almost like push their stomach out to make it look more dramatic to then be like, oh, this is normal. This is and normalize it, which I think that there is a great beauty behind that. But we have to be careful and we have to be self-aware that you having to push out your stomach or really roll your stomach down to have rolls isn't necessarily going to make other people feel better about their body. If anything, it might just seem like there's some ignorance there, but that's not to it's also important to recognize that maybe that person does struggle with those insecurities. So who am I to say that you shouldn't have them? But yeah, so losing the weight, it made me a lot more cognizant of those things. And so now I'm at a weight that I'm a lot more comfortable with. And it was just part of the journey.
I'm sort of almost taken aback that someone would have ostensibly been a supporter of body positivity and yet criticize someone for a smaller body. I mean, I think that's the essence of the
It's ironic,
hypocrisy
right?
of the worst type of personality that tends to gravitate to the other extreme. It's body positive as long as it's a bigger body, but yet here is
Hmm.
shame or criticism for a woman. And they clearly had no idea as to why. They probably didn't know, bypass the possibility that maybe there's an eating disorder here or
Hmm.
some sort of sickness or life stress or what have you. So, thoughts there.
I mean, so what's interesting is I don't know if you saw my post today. I actually just made a post that's saying, why do you promote women building muscle and getting strong? And it was stitched with a lot of like quote skinny talk videos where
Mm.
people are basically saying that skinny is the outfit, or you just need to stop eating, or some other kind of, in my personal opinion, more questionable ways of perceiving food and your body. And so that's where I think what you're saying is great, because I don't think we should be shaming people for being in a smaller body. I don't think we should be shaming people for being in a larger body. I think we need to be cognizant that what the goal is for people to be healthy. And that's going to look different for everybody. But that's not going to look like over restricting your calories to the point where you're malnourished. That's not going to look like overeating to the point where you're essentially using food to cope with emotions, or like again like binge eating. That's not healthy either. But that's where we need to be more okay with the gray area of, just because somebody's in a body that you're not as used to seeing doesn't mean that they're inherently unhealthy, and it doesn't give the full picture. Somebody could be in a body that has a slightly higher body fat percentage and actually still be healthy. That's like the terrible thing about our society is we've gone so far. Somebody can be in a really, really small body and still have like diabetes or health issues. And so I think it's so important for us to recognize that and to hold space for the nuance, while also being cognizant of, again, I want to accept the bodies for what they are. It's the mindsets that we need to be really cognizant and careful of.
Were you ever treated differently at different points along 60 pounds
Yeah.
up, minus 20 pounds from your current point?
I received probably the most compliments ever when I was in my smallest. And a lot of it was because I had gone through the weight loss. And so a lot of people just wanted to know how I did it and were just really curious. So I get that. And then when I was in a bigger body, the funny thing is, I actually just had this conversation with a friend too, because something I'm still learning and still accepting is how to take compliments well. And then also recognizing that I am somebody who has a nice look. Like I'm a good looking human. And it sounds weird to say that, but the reason I say it like that is because when I was in a bigger body, didn't see myself that way. I was always like the funny friend. And that's why I was treated with a lot of guys. Like a lot of guys were my brothers, and they would never have thought of hitting on me or had interest in me romantically or think that I was physically attractive. And as I lost weight and changed, I started to get more attention from guys, and I was really confused. And I would be like, "Oh, these are just people who want to be friends," because that's always where my mind goes. These guys want to be friends. They're like my brothers, because especially coming from the fire service and everything,
Mm.
that's how it is. And then a lot of my guy friends, and this is meant to sound humble. This is not me wanting the attention at all. But a lot of guy friends would start to come forward and say, like, "Oh, I actually have a really big crush on you now." Or and it was always now. And I was like,
Mm.
"I'm confused. It's because my body changed." And they're like, "Well, you always had a good personality, but now you just look better." And I was like, "What is wrong with you?" To me, that's my personal opinion. But to only hold value in the way that someone looks is insane to me. Because obviously your body can change for so many reasons. And to say that somebody maybe was a a good candidate emotionally and mentally before, but just wasn't physically attractive, which I get it. You should obviously be physically attracted to partners and stuff. But so that's where I was treated differently. Is it seemed like my I had to put on more of a almost show of my personality and then learn to be funny, which I appreciate. It made me really driven to, even, I mean, you obviously follow me, but it's like you see that I don't hypersexualize myself on
Mhm.
purpose. I don't want my page being about my body anyways. Obviously, I post gym selfies and stuff, or I post like me flexing, but I don't want to be hypersexualized, and I don't want all of my value to come from my body. Personally, I have no problems with other people doing that. I love that for them, and I'm so glad that that's what they want to do. But I want my page to be about my humor. I want it to be about my education. I want it to be about my personality. So when I started to notice the shift mentally and emotionally from people because of my physical appearance, I became very cognizant of how I show up. And I think that it is important to utilize your looks effectively anyways, because obviously that is part of the sales. It's part of it's part of life. It's the first thing you see about someone. You should look presentable. You should look in a way that's comfortable and confident to you. Yes, use that to your advantage, but don't make it the only value that you have in this world.
You made me think of, I've had a few guests who, like, let's say, I've never had a guest where their media and image was hypersexualized. Not that I can think of at all.
Hmm.
I have guests who are brilliant, highly educated, credible, but they're also competitive physique athletes.
Hmm.
Um, and they're very accomplished. And I can think of a few examples. Holly Baxter was on recently, Hattie
Hmm.
Boydell. I mean, they're icons.
I was about to
My
say
good
those are
friend
like the
Natalia
fit.
Mello. Natalia Mello's a former Miss Bikini Olympia champion. She's an
Hmm.
awesome human being, right? And their physiques is a part of their messaging, but
Hmm.
it's also the credibility, accomplishment, their legacy of work in the industry. So that's a perfectly fine balance. You've been open. You mentioned your PCOS a couple
Hmm.
times here just a moment ago. Have you ever gotten comments like, you don't look like you have PCOS?
Uh, actually, no. No, I've never received comments like that. I I try to maybe it's because I try to be pretty cognizant of when I do mention my PCOS, I mention that I've gone through hair loss and weight gain. And most of the time I would like to believe that people are more educated now. Not everyone, obviously, but they understand that PCOS doesn't inherently mean that you can't lose weight. It doesn't inherently mean that you're going to have really bad symptoms. Um, I mean, I'm pretty open that like even right now I'm getting a little breakout here, and that's from my PCOS. Like I'm getting into my luteal phase, and that tends to happen especially if like maybe stress levels are higher or if my nutrition's a little off. So I don't really get people saying I don't look like I have it, but I don't know. I think it's interesting to me when people do perceive that you're supposed to look a certain way if you have it.
Do you want to go any deeper on that? Because I mean, I think that you've alluded to that belief system. I mean, the fact that I asked the question, it's baked in there. Or any of the other common beliefs, because you alluded to the fact that you can effectively lose weight
Hmm.
if someone has PCOS. There's a lot of people who believe that PCOS is a massive obstacle. We know it's more
Hmm.
challenging, or it virtually makes it impossible. What's going on there when someone subscribes to the belief, hey, I've got PCOS, you can't lose weight?
I think that that's due to a couple things, and I'm not just saying that this is exactly what that person is going through, but there's an aspect of a victim mindset. So wanting to blame outside circumstances or even things that aren't fully in your control as almost an excuse to not see the results that you want, while also not having a good perception of what are realistic and reasonable results for you to have anyways. So when I went through my PCOS, I had to make peace with the fact that at the beginning, it was not reasonable and realistic for me to go through a fat loss phase anyways. I needed to spend some time taking some stress off of my body, and a calorie deficit can be a stressor on the body. And so I spent some time at maintenance and I spent some time training less intensely in the gym. So I was moving less and I was eating more. So I inherently gained weight. And then after probably about 3 to 4 months of doing that to get a regular cycle back, because that was the goal, was I need to get a cycle that's a little bit more normal or even just get it back in general. And once I did that, then I went through a fat loss phase. Was it harder? Yeah, because I had to eat less than I was used to, and my cravings would be significantly higher. And I also had to be really cognizant of sometimes when I would do too much when it came to uh, cardio, my PCOS symptoms would almost instantly get worse. So, like, my luteal phase would just get horrible. And so I had to be really cognizant of that. But then also, again, the mindset aspect is a lot of people think that they just can't lose weight because of it. We are not special butterflies that basically defy the laws of thermodynamics. It is always going to be calories in versus calories out. Again, there's a lot of physiology that makes it harder. So maybe your cravings are worse. Maybe it does exacerbate your luteal phase symptoms, which makes you more tired. And so you don't want to move as much. Maybe again, it's just not the right thing for you to be focusing on in that moment.
Another quote I pulled from your media: don't sacrifice your own needs for the sake of others. Compromise and be thoughtful, but don't neglect yourself in the process.
Mhm.
This doesn't make you difficult or unkind.
Mhm.
Why does this matter?
I'm somebody who I'm a recovering people pleaser. And so I would, and especially as I said, a lot of my jobs would be focused on trying to help others. So personal training, firefighting, it was literally sacrificing myself for the sake of others. And obviously in firefighting, we learn like, don't put yourself at risk for somebody else, but you're putting your life on the line to try to help people. And even with like personal training, you're not putting your life on the line, but you're in service of others. And I recognized that a lot of my desires to do stuff like that was to almost avoid the discomfort of sitting with my own stuff, and also, again, to try to save everyone else.
Mm.
And so I had to learn the balance of that where I still can be so passionate about wanting to help people and I can still really want to see people succeed and, again, show up in a thoughtful way. But a lot of times, and I don't want to say that this is specifically around women, but I do think women have a tendency to do this more just because, like, we have the pressures of being a mother or how we show up as a partner. Like, there's certain expectations, but I don't want to just say it's women because men do this too. But we will think that we need to sacrifice our own needs for the sake of everyone else, when the reality is that leads to resentment. It leads to not showing up authentically and fully, and it can actually make things worse. When the reality is, like, if we show up for ourselves in a thoughtful way, so again, making compromises and do the things that we say we need to do and take care of ourselves, we will show up better inherently for others.
No, I like that. This theme's come up a few times in recent episodes, and it's a delicate dance. And I'm always very careful how I express these things on my media
Mhm.
too, because I'm always fearful that if I talk too much about my boundaries, then less people will reach out. And anybody who follows my media or anybody listening, like, I cannot stress this enough. If you have an open invitation to send me a message on social media, Instagram is
Mhm.
probably the main hub. I will answer questions. I love responding to stuff. I can always do that very thoughtfully.
Mhm.
But there's also, I'm going to give you guys an example, and I think I got to pull this out of my LinkedIn. So I don't use LinkedIn almost at all. And I got a message, a request and a message from a guy I have no relationship with, don't know. But this sort of thing usually sets off alarm bells. So the message reads, "Hey, Andrew, glad we connected. I'm always interested in hearing what drives other business owners. What's been your main focus or project lately?" Now, here, you listen to my response, okay? And this might seem blunt, but hi, so-and-so. Would you be so kind as to be direct and transparent with your purpose and intentions with this? All, I all too often get inquiries that are thinly veiled precursors to some type of pitch or unwanted solicitation. I'm less active on LinkedIn, but my work and projects are very easily accessible via Instagram. And I haven't gotten a reply. Now, what I didn't like about the message is, number one, it sounds sort of salesy and spammy.
Mhm.
Uh, but two, the way that the question was asked, it placed the burden of effort on me with this vague, nebulous request. So here's what I will tell people: ask specific questions, ask thoughtful questions, because this is like him acting like he's interested in me. He's got an agenda. I just don't
Mhm.
know what it was. And that's why I asked about it right off the hop. So I usually, when I suspect someone, is up to something that's very self-serving and there's no genuine interest in authentic relationship, that's where I filter it out.
Why do you engage in the first place?
And that's a fantastic answer. And I'd say 98% of the time I don't. This came up, I think it was Cal Newport in one of his books, and he's
Mhm.
great at this stuff, or maybe somewhere else. It's like, if an email or a request
Yeah.
doesn't isn't strong enough or interesting enough to justify a yes, it doesn't justify a response either, which I actually operate based on that. I think I responded because maybe I was being uncharitable in my assumption and there was a genuine, intent there. And this way I could ask a sort of a blunt question, and then he could get right to the point of it, which makes it
Mhm.
efficient. But to your point, and I think this is what wisdom for everybody else is, we actually have to filter, because if it's very evident that someone's trying to sell us something, guess what? No, I don't respond.
I mean, I think it's also important to recognize too, you can choose when you respond to anybody in general, because you're mentioning how you have an open invitation for people to message you. And I have the same thing with clients. Like I tell people, message me whenever something comes up on your mind. I have notifications off. So
Same.
yeah. So I respond when I deem it appropriate or I deem it in like my work hours. And I have those boundaries for myself. You can do the same thing with text messages. You can do the same thing with phone calls. And I do think that there is a beauty in being communicative and being responsive and respectful of other people's time and energy, especially if they're trying to contact you for a specific reason. But it's like the Tom Holland quote. He said it on like the Jay Shetty podcast. But he basically says that people, if you don't have my number, oh gosh, it's about talking. It's more about like gossip. But it is, if you have my number, then I'll respond more quickly usually. I'm still pretty bad at texting, but I try to be very thoughtful of responding to text messages because I'm like, okay, we're on a personal enough basis where you have my number. I do want to be thoughtful of that. But then when it comes to DMs and everything else, I absolutely love and I view everyone who follows me as a friend, but I'm not going to respond day and night to any question anytime. I do set aside time because I do value the fact that someone cared enough to even send anything. And I do think, yeah, sometimes people ask questions that they could probably easily Google, but I'm also like, hey, you're entrusting me enough to even ask this question. That's really special and that's really exciting. But I think that we as human beings also need to be cognizant of where can we take accountability for giving people too much access, um, or putting the burden on ourselves of, oh, I need to respond to everything. Or I like, again, if someone's sending you a message that you're like, I think this is an ulterior motive, maybe you can engage to find out more clarity if you are that curious. But also you can say, you know what, I don't feel like responding, and that's okay.
And that's usually what happens. Okay. Quote, my rule for myself is I'm not going to pretend I'm okay when I'm not anymore. And you alluded to this earlier.
Uh-huh.
Why is that important?
Um, it's interesting because, like I said, I don't want my Instagram to be a journal and I don't want it to be therapy. I don't want to share things that I haven't fully processed or that are maybe more personal that people don't deserve the access to, in my opinion. But I also don't want to ever pretend like when I'm showing up and I'm going through something challenging or life is difficult or whatever it might be, that I'm just hunky dory. Because I think it's an important reminder to people that you can still show up even with difficult things going on and you can still get things done. Because I think a lot of times, again, kind of going back to maybe more of the victim mindset or too much coddling, we have a tendency to make it harder for ourselves or almost like condone not showing up to our full capacity. Again, you're going to show up differently if you are going through difficult things, but I don't want people to think that they can't show up because hard things are happening. And also again, I would tiptoe around other people to make them happy, and that's not my job. You can't manage everyone else's responses.
Is this born from a pressure? Because if someone does follow your media, and I brought you on here to encourage them to do so, you have a lot of feel good stuff, right? The dancing in the morning, there's almost always something posted that I think is, I think it's generally positive and uplifting. So do you ever feel pressure, or did you in the past feel pressure to avoid being open about some of the more negative stuff, or feel pressure that you had to be sunshiny and bubbly all the time as a performance for other people based on some artificial idea of your expectations that you think they had for you?
I did. I was in a relationship a couple years ago where we were very open about being in a relationship on our social media and we had like moved in together and there was a lot of pressure from social media for us to even get together in the first place. And from there, we would have so many issues, like a lot. But then we would keep posting happy go lucky couples content. And I hated it. It felt like we were just being fake and I was staying in a relationship that I was extremely unhappy in because I felt like it was the thing I was supposed to do. And I had never really been that person. And I was very grateful because I was also obviously posting fitness content, but it inherently made me really avoidant. And so I was avoiding the discomfort of leaving a relationship because of the unknown or because I thought it was, again, what I was supposed to be in. And so I just poured myself into my work and my business and my body. And it was great in those senses, but then I was still miserable. And I think that when and he's not a bad person, I want to be abundantly clear that like we just didn't work. And when we did separate, it gave me so much more clarity on what I actually want. And so then when I got into a new relationship, it did make it more authentic and it made it more intentional, where when I did share it, it was sharing the real parts of it.
Mm.
And then similarly, now something I try to be very cognizant of is sharing things that actually feel real and feel authentic to me, because I don't want, again, I don't want to give a false image to people, because we already do so much of that online. Again, you're seeing highlight reels, you're seeing the curated things. And again, I think that's why like now with my personal life, I do keep it a lot more personal, because I don't want to feel that pressure to be like, oh, there's something wrong or whatever. But also, again, if there is something wrong, I can say that there is, and I'm just not going to share it.
I actually don't share a lot of my personal life and, whatever. And
I
when,
learned the hard way that you don't have to.
no, I mean, and when we're traveling, like the friends I've made in the industry are absolutely just as close and real as the people that, are
Mhm,
geographically local, right? But there's still almost sort of a segmentation in our minds too. And oftentimes when I'm traveling at events, I take less photos. I'll still post some stuff, but I'm better at just being immersed in it.
mhm,
Anytime I go to a concert, I go to with one of my best friends. He has like almost no social media footprint and just sweet, quiet human I've known for 2 decades. We go to a ton of concerts together, and I'll usually snap a photo of us just to kind of
mhm,
whatever, But with if I'm in a social setting, I don't often take photos or videos because my friends don't have out your and my style of social media, right? They're
mhm.
not. I very careful with how I say this, but they don't have the large social media following, and they don't have a forward facing brand in the fitness industry. So I just like enjoy those moments, and I don't take. It's almost like I feel like to document that with my close friends when we're being social, it's almost an intrusion. And I don't automatically feel like I have anybody's permission to broadcast that to, what is objectively a larger social media audience, right? So I like just being immersed in it. Now Ozzy, my cat, and you know what? For the video people, you guys are he's actually like just sleeping in the chair next to me. You'll see a million pictures of Ozzy online, and he seems to have a sense he knows something's up when I get a camera in his face, but I don't think he truly understands just how many people love him.
For me, I love photos and I love videos because I love having the memories. And so I'm really cognizant of, I try to be really intentional about doing that, like taking photos and taking videos when I'm with friends, but I just don't feel as big of a need to share it online now. So I'll share certain things, and especially stuff that I'm excited about, because you should be excited and you should celebrate that. Like people want to see other people happy and want to see them living their lives, but it's also okay to be doing things and not have to share it and to just be in it. And like again, take the memories just for the sake of taking the memories, not just to post them on social media.
I'm almost bad with this stuff about like, I mean, my wall is rarely actually much of me. It's really just kind of words and ideas or things from the
Yeah.
podcast. So I've almost gotten too much into that. And I think I need to shift back the other way. This has been, oh, you're going to say something?
Oh no, there's no right or wrong way to do anything. I mean, yeah, there's more optimal ways for certain things, but it is about doing what feels right for you.
A quick sponsor break for my current aspiring coach listeners. This episode is brought to you by Train Heroic. If you know me, you know I only work with sponsors I use personally and where I know the people behind the product. Train Heroic is the best online coaching software in the industry. Not only is it a great platform for one-on-one coaching, it's fantastic for group coaching and selling standalone programs. Train Heroic is used by some of my trusted friends, so I switched my online group program here, and my members love it, raving about its ease of use. Having a dedicated app means far greater reliability for my clients and has been by far my best experience with any online coaching software. Train Heroic is a proven and stable industry leader, meaning it isn't going to suddenly disappear
one of the biggest risks in choosing an online coaching software. When you start a free trial today, you'll get 90 days free to experience why I love and trust this platform. You'll get full support from their team, who've been a joy for me to work with. And I trust Train Heroic and the people behind it. Here's how to activate your free 90-day trial. It's 2 important steps. Number 1, go to www.trainheroic.com/liftfree. Step 2, reply to the email you get. It should be trials@trainheroic.com, and let them know I sent you, or go to the links in the show notes.
I think as social media shift and change, and sometimes it feels louder and more competitive, I feel like I've gone almost the other way. It's like almost hiding in plain sight, and I'm more at peace that way. So
As long as it works for you.
exactly. This has been fantastic. Nice exploration into your thoughts, wisdom, philosophy, life. Everybody can find you at the Alex Allen, ALLEN.
Yes.
Is there anywhere else you want to send people to? You're going to get the podcast back up and running soon?
Yeah. So the podcast will be up in 2 weeks. And so it'll be up probably by the time this one goes up, I'm assuming. And so, yeah, Born to Thrive on all platforms. And then the Alex Allen on Instagram, TikTok, and technically YouTube, but I barely post on there, which I need to start.
It's so much pressure to be on all the things. I mean, I put these episodes up on YouTube now. I've had a YouTube channel for a long time. I've done minimal with. There's a library of exercise, quick demo videos without the 3 minutes of bullshit and preamble, or
Yeah.
find out that the exercise is taught wrong. So if you want to check that out, there's a ton there for you. And coaches, you can use that as your online video library if you don't have the time, resources to go film your own. It might help you. So if you guys want that, just DM me. I'll send it to you. Alex, thanks for coming on. It's been a joy.
Thank you.